Captain Elias Hunter had seen the galaxy in flames. For 20 years he had fought across star systems, each battle leaving scars on both planets and people. Now the war was over. The Galactic Coalition had defeated the tyrannical Xerian Empire, and humanity had emerged as a leading power among the stars. Yet Elias did not celebrate. Victory felt hollow when he remembered the countless lives lost, soldiers, civilians, and even innocents enslaved by the Xerians. He stepped off the transport ship onto the sprawling landing platform of the human command station, orbiting Earth. The air smelled of sterilized metal and faint ozone, a reminder that this station had seen more battles than celebrations. Troops milled about, exchanging stories and claiming small rewards for their service. Elias, however, walked quietly, his eyes scanning the horizon. He had no interest in pomp or medals. That's when the call came. Captain Elias Hunter, a voice crackled through his communicator. Report to the inheritance chamber immediately. Elias frowned. Inheritance? After the war, the Coalition had cataloged all the assets left by the Xerians. Starships, weapons, alien artifacts, and people. The idea of inheriting someone as property made his chest tighten with unease. He entered the chamber, expecting perhaps an officer to hand him a crate or a data chip. Instead, he found a girl waiting. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Standing at the center of the room, her posture was regal despite the restraints around her wrists. Her skin had a faint iridescent glow, shifting colors in the soft lights of the chamber. Her hair, long and silver, flowed around her shoulders, and her eyes, large, almond-shaped, and violet, studied him without fear. You are Captain Hunter? She asked, her voice soft yet confident. Yes, he said cautiously, unsure what to do next. And you are? The records call me Leora, she replied. I was owned by the Xerian rulers, but I am not a servant in spirit. Elias felt a tug in his chest. He had expected a frightened, submissive girl. Instead, Leora stood like a queen in exile. He could sense the fire in her, the will to survive. Captain, an officer said, stepping forward. She is assigned to you as part of the Coalition's redistribution program. You may take possession of her as you see fit. Elias swallowed hard. Possession? The word sounded wrong on his tongue. He had fought to free the galaxy from slavery, and now he was being asked to accept it. Is there a choice? He asked, his voice low. The officer hesitated, then shook his head. This is protocol. Elias turned to Leora. She met his gaze steadily. I'm not afraid of humans, she said, but I will not be treated as an object. I expect respect. Elias nodded, more to himself than to her. Then you will have it, he said simply. The first days were awkward. Elias tried to treat her with courtesy, but the walls between them were thick. Leora spoke little, preferring observation. She watched the soldiers, the routines, the conversations, as if learning everything at once. In turn, Elias observed her grace, her intelligence, the way her eyes seemed to notice the smallest details. One evening, as the station hummed with power and distant starships glided past, Elias found Leora standing by the viewport, staring at a distant planet still scarred from the war. You look at it as if you expect it to speak to you, he said. Leora did not startle. I feel the echoes, she said. The pain, the loss, the people who cannot speak anymore. Elias said nothing. She was right. He had seen too much, but he had never thought of it in this way, through the eyes of someone who had lived under tyranny. You survived, he said finally. Yes, she replied, but I am not whole, and I do not yet know who I am beyond what they forced me to be. Elias understood then that this was not merely about inheritance. This was about survival, about reclaiming a life stolen by war, and perhaps in helping her he could begin to heal parts of himself. The peace of the station was short-lived. Word of the Xerian artifacts and their prizes had spread quickly, and not all humans or aliens were content to leave things be. A group of mercenaries attempted to seize Leora one night, believing her to hold some hidden power or value. Elias was unprepared for the attack, but instinct took over. Blaster fire tore through the corridors, red streaks cutting through the dim light. Elias drew his rifle, moving with the calm precision that had kept him alive in countless battles. Leora did not panic. Instead, she stepped beside him, her movements fluid and precise. When a mercenary lunged at Elias from behind, Leora reacted before he could even see, knocking the attacker back with surprising force. Elias froze, stunned. Where did you learn that? He demanded, eyes wide. Leora's expression remained calm. I survived for years under them, she said simply. I had to. Together they fought, covering each other, moving as if they had trained together for years. By the time security forces arrived, the mercenaries had fled, leaving behind only their weapons and confusion. Elias helped Leora to her feet. She did not need it, but he offered the gesture as a sign of trust. She met his gaze, and for the first time there was a hint of warmth in her eyes. You are stronger than I expected, he said, almost grudgingly. And you are more capable than your records suggest, she replied. In the following days, the bond between them deepened. Leora began to share small details of her past, not the horrors, but the lessons she had learned. She could read alien technologies with ease, deciphering circuits and codes that left human engineers baffled. Elias taught her human customs, shared stories of courage and resilience, and slowly, the walls of fear and suspicion between them began to crumble. Yet even as they grew closer, Elias sensed that Leora held secrets. There were moments when her eyes glimmered with an inner light, as if she knew things before they happened. One evening, as they walked along the station's observation deck, Leora suddenly stopped. Something is coming, she whispered. Elias frowned. What do you mean? Danger, she said, her gaze fixed on the stars. Not far. They are searching. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Security messages crackled over the intercom. The rogue alien warlord who had refused to accept defeat was approaching with a fleet, seeking to reclaim what he considered his property, Leora. Elias grabbed his weapon. We'll be ready, he said. Leora nodded. Together. As the station shook from distant blasts, Elias realized something profound. Leora was no longer merely someone he had inherited. She was a partner, a force to be reckoned with. And in protecting her, he was protecting something larger, the very essence of freedom and humanity itself. The first wave of the enemy fleet broke through the station's defenses. Blaster fire illuminated the void outside the observation windows. Elias moved through the corridors, directing soldiers checking defenses. Leora stayed at his side, her hands glowing faintly as she manipulated the alien tech, amplifying shields and redirecting power. It was astonishing. She moved not like a child, not like a prisoner, but like a master of her own destiny. Elias felt a surge of respect and admiration he had never thought he could feel for someone who was once labeled a slave. When the rogue forces boarded the station, Elias and Leora met them head-on. Elias fought with precision, while Leora seemed to anticipate every move. They complemented each other perfectly, human strategy blending with alien intuition. By dawn, the battle was over. The enemy had been repelled, suffering heavy losses. Elias and Leora stood together amid the wreckage, breathing heavily, their faces illuminated by the soft morning light streaming through the station's windows. You saved more than just yourself, Elias said quietly. And you saved more than just me, Leora replied. For the first time since the war began, Elias felt a spark of hope. The galaxy was still broken, but in that moment, he realized that humanity's strength was not just in weapons or numbers, but in courage, compassion, and the ability to forge bonds even with those once considered enemies or possessions. Leora looked at him, eyes bright with determination. This is only the beginning, she said. Elias nodded. Then we face it together. And together, they stepped forward into the uncertain future, two souls bound not by obligation but by choice, courage, and mutual respect, ready to shape the galaxy in ways neither of them had imagined. The galaxy was quiet, but only for a moment. After the battle at the station, Captain Elias Hunter and Leora had retreated to a remote human colony on a neutral planet. The planet was small, surrounded by a thick belt of asteroids and largely ignored by the rest of the galaxy. It was the perfect place to regroup, plan, and recover. Elias watched the twin suns rise over jagged mountains as he stood outside the small dome where they had set up temporary quarters. Leora was already awake, her hands hovering over a console that hummed softly. Alien technology intertwined with human systems, and she manipulated it as if it were an extension of herself. You never sleep, do you? Elias asked, leaning against the doorway. I do, Leora replied, not looking up. But I prefer to use the quiet hours to understand the systems here. They are crude compared to what I am used to, but they have potential. Elias smiled faintly. He admired her curiosity, her ability to learn and adapt. She had been labeled a slave, yet she carried herself with the dignity of a queen. It was clear that the galaxy had underestimated her. "You've grown strong," he said. "Stronger than I expected." Leora finally looked at him, her violet eyes meeting his. "I had no choice. Survival demands strength and freedom demands courage. You have taught me some of that too, Captain." Elias nodded. Teaching her had been more than just sharing skills. It had been about trust, understanding, and partnership. Days passed quietly at the colony. Leora learned human tactics, language, and culture, while Elias absorbed her knowledge of alien technology. Together they began improving the colony's defenses. Leora's understanding of alien systems allowed her to upgrade the colony's shields and weapons far beyond standard human design. Elias guided the local security forces, teaching them strategies that emphasized teamwork, ingenuity, and adaptability. But peace was fragile. Reports began arriving from nearby systems. Rogue Xerian warlords had regrouped and were moving to reclaim lost territories, seeking survivors and treasures of the old empire. One name kept appearing in the reports: Vareth, a cunning and ruthless warlord who had survived the fall of the empire and was determined to capture Leora. Elias and Leora prepared. She studied the warlord's tactics, analyzing likely moves. He coordinated defenses and trained the colonists. The bond between them grew, no longer simply one of necessity but of respect and reliance. Each day they discovered new facets of each other, strength, intelligence, and loyalty that no words could fully express. One evening, while reviewing star charts, Leora paused. "They are closer than we think," she said, pointing at a small fleet approaching from the outer systems. Elias frowned. "How many ships?" "8 fast and heavily armed," she said. "They know where to strike," he straightened. "Then we make sure they don't leave." The first attack came at dawn. Laser fire streaked across the skies and explosions rocked the colony. Elias led a squad of soldiers to defend the outer perimeter. Leora stayed at the command console, her fingers flying over alien controls. The shields pulsed under her touch, diverting energy, strengthening weak points, and predicting enemy maneuvers before they occurred. The rogue warlord's forces were strong, but they underestimated the humans and Leora. They had not faced a combination of strategy, human ingenuity, and alien intuition before. Blasters and energy cannons lit up the battlefield, but every assault was countered with precision. During the battle, a ship broke through the defenses and landed on the surface. Elias and a small team rushed to intercept it, only to find themselves surrounded. The attackers were elite Xerian soldiers, well-trained and merciless. "Captain Hunter," a voice called out. It was Leora, but her tone carried power and authority. "Focus on the shield node. I will cover you." Elias nodded and moved quickly. As he fought, Leora's presence became apparent not just in strategy but in action. She manipulated the environment, triggering defenses and controlling energy flows that left the Xerian soldiers disoriented. They fell back, unable to predict her moves. Elias finally reached the node. Leora's glow surrounded it, and the node pulsed with alien energy. The soldiers attempting to destroy it were thrown back by invisible forces, as if the station itself had awakened. Elias watched in awe. Leora was no longer just a survivor. She was a force of nature. When the battle ended, the battlefield was silent except for the hum of the shields and the distant ringing of alarms. The enemy fleet had retreated. Leora turned to Elias, her face calm but glowing faintly with energy. "You are extraordinary," he said, voice low. "I had no idea." "I am not extraordinary," she replied. "I am what I was meant to be. I only needed someone to see it." Elias felt a weight lift from his chest. For years he had fought battles where the outcome seemed meaningless. Here, with Leora, he saw purpose, hope, and the possibility of something greater. The victory, however, was only temporary. News came that Vareth had formed an alliance with other rogue factions, intent on capturing Leora and reclaiming her abilities. Elias realized that the galaxy would never let her be free unless they acted. They began a journey across systems, moving from one hidden colony to another, always staying one step ahead of the enemy. Along the way, Leora's abilities grew stronger. She could sense danger, manipulate alien tech remotely, and even influence weak-minded adversaries to hesitate. Humans marveled at her, not just because of her power, but because of her intelligence and moral sense. Elias noticed a change in himself, too. He was no longer just a soldier fighting battles. He was a protector, a teacher, and a partner. Humanity's strength was not just in their weapons, he realized, but in their ability to trust, adapt, and fight for what was right. At one point, they arrived at a devastated planet that had been the site of a brutal Xerian battle. Refugees were scattered across the surface. Leora stepped forward immediately, coordinating relief, healing, and defense. Elias helped her organize the humans, distributing food, shelter, and protection. Together they restored hope to those who had lost everything. "This is what matters," Elias said one night as they watched the sun set. "Not victory or power. Helping those who cannot defend themselves." Leora smiled. "You have always understood that, Captain. That is why I trust you." Elias looked at her, realizing that trust was mutual. She was no longer someone he had inherited. She was a partner, equal in strength and will. The final confrontation with Vareth came months later. Intelligence reported that the warlord had amassed a fleet twice the size of the coalition, forces, and planned a direct assault on a human-occupied system where Leora had established a refuge. Elias prepared his forces carefully. The humans were outnumbered, but their strategy, combined with Leora's abilities, gave them an edge. As the enemy fleet approached, Leora took control of the alien technology embedded in the planet's defense network. Shields rose, turrets aligned, and energy fields pulsed in precise synchronization. When the first wave hit, humans fought bravely, using every trick and tactic Elias had taught them. Leora moved among them, augmenting shields, predicting enemy maneuvers, and providing the perfect countermeasures. Her glowing presence on the battlefield inspired the soldiers, giving them courage beyond their experience. Vareth himself arrived on the surface, confident and armed with deadly technology. He confronted Elias directly, mocking him for trying to protect a slave. "She is no one's slave," Elias replied firmly, raising his weapon. "And you will learn why humans fight not just with strength but with courage and honor." The battle was intense. Vareth was skilled, but he underestimated the bond between human and alien, between Elias and Leora. Leora intercepted Vareth's attacks with energy shields and precise maneuvers, while Elias exploited openings with human ingenuity. Together, they turned the tide. Finally, with a combination of strategy, courage, and Leora's extraordinary abilities, Vareth was defeated. His fleet fled, leaving the humans victorious. After the battle, Elias and Leora stood on a hill overlooking the planet. The air was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of recovering machinery. Humans and aliens alike had survived, thanks to their combined efforts. "You are free now," Elias said softly, turning to Leora. She smiled, a genuine expression of relief and joy. "I have never truly been free until now, and I choose to stay with you, not as a slave but as an ally, as a friend." Elias felt a warmth he had not known in years. Humanity had emerged from the shadows of war stronger than ever, not because of their weapons but because of their honor, courage, and ability to inspire loyalty and trust. Leora represented that same potential, showing that even those who had suffered the most could rise and change the course of the galaxy. Together they began rebuilding, not just the colony or the systems, but hope itself. Humans and aliens worked side by side, learning from each other, united not by conquest but by respect and shared purpose. The galaxy was still vast and dangerous, but Elias and Leora knew that as long as they faced it together, nothing could break them. And for the first time in decades, Captain Elias Hunter felt the future was bright, not just for humanity, but for all who dared to fight for freedom, courage, and friendship.